All right, welcome. In this video, I will be reading the about and chapter one of my new book that was recently released, titled Lucky to Be Here: How to Discover Your Purpose, Live with Leadership, and Find Success. All right, we'll go ahead and start with the about. When Dr. Patrick C. Horton was wounded on the battlefield during Operation Iraqi Freedom, his life was endangered in more ways than one. The brush with death woke him up to what takes many people a lifetime to discover. We are lucky to be here, and it is our sacred opportunity to figure out what we want to achieve. With candor and insight, Dr. Horton outlines how living with leadership, character, passion, and determination helped him leave behind the foibles of his youth to achieve executive and entrepreneurial success. Even more importantly, he outlines how readers can pinpoint and pursue their own goals for an unapologetically successful existence in which they too feel lucky to be here. All right, chapter one: Find Your Purpose. I'd like to take you back to April 2003 when I found my purpose. And yes, the experience was as dramatic as that sentence. The US was just 1 month into Operation Iraqi Freedom, and I held an E4 rank as a specialist, which is essentially an Army private with experience. I've been deployed previously to Kosovo for a peacekeeping mission. My unit was tasked with taking the Baghdad airport, and we were at a military checkpoint about 10 minutes away. It was hot and humid. I was outfitted with full battle rattle gear, right down to my chemical mask, so I was that much more uncomfortable. But I was also locked into the mission at hand. I had experience, I knew my mission, and I was ready to go. Suddenly, an explosion propelled the gun barrel from an Iraqi tank into my back, breaking three of my ribs on impact. I was in and out of consciousness for the next several hours while I was medevaced to a military field hospital and placed on life support. Gradually, I regained consciousness and came face to face with what had happened and what it meant. As I lay there over the next 24 hours, I asked myself, if I died today, had I been someone my family would be proud of? Do I go talk to the girl I liked, or was I too scared? Had I been living as a leader or a follower? Was I an honest and moral person at all times? My answer every time was no. No. I had not lived up to my potential, and this could be it for me. I was only 23 years old, and I could be getting ready to take my last breath. With this realization came an overwhelming horror as I pictured my mom and family dealing with the aftermath of my death. Lying on my hospital bed, I could see the casualty assistance officer arriving with an American flag at my home in Vacaville, California, and notifying my mom that her only child had been killed in combat. I also had one other thought. Although I'm not a religious man, a lot of my family is, and I do respect it. I said, God, if you give me another chance, I promise I'll make something of myself. I'm done with half-assing life. A doctor came in a few days later and told me that I had three broken ribs, potential lung damage, and torn tissue. He told me that my torso was starting to collapse and that I needed to breathe through a special tool whether I was awake when I was awake to keep my torso inflated and prevent pneumonia or death. It was a sobering moment, but a joyful one too. My prayer had been answered, and I was granted another chance. The question was, what would I do with it? The best decision I ever made was to join the military. I recommend it for anyone who doesn't have a clear path in life. And when I was 20 years old, I sure didn't. Everything had fallen apart for me in my senior year in high school. Until then, I'd had a promising baseball career and was planning to attend Sacramento State University when I graduated. Trouble was, my GPA had dropped to 1.7 my senior year, which had made me ineligible to play baseball and caused Sacramento State to rescind its offer to even attend school there. I became depressed and was really down at that point. I had no idea what I was going to do with my life outside of baseball. I graduated high school anyways and started an IT degree at Hill College in Sacramento. I also got a job in retail with the help of my best friend, but my performance was so poor I lost that job. I was flat broke. When people asked me what had happened and I explained, I could see the disgust in their faces. Eventually, I completed my associate's degree in computer science. Having experienced so many ups and downs in my life up to that point, I was in search of change. I didn't know if that change would come from landing an IT job in Northern California, from venturing further away in search of an IT opportunity, or from my newly researched option of joining the military. One of the greatest gifts Hill College provided me was the ability to treat life decisions as if they were business decisions, take the emotion out of it and look at it logically at the pros and cons of each move, almost like the game of chess. What would be the return on investment if I got a regular IT job in Sacramento with no experience versus joining the military? I can remember pulling out a legal pad and writing down the pros and cons of both options. With a local IT job, I reasoned I'd be making roughly $15 to $18 an hour with few or no benefits. I'd be able to stay home where I was comfortable. I was still picking up the pieces of my life after having made a lot of mistakes. Would being in an environment help or hurt me? Would being in that environment help or hurt me? How would it affect my psyche and confidence living and working around so many people who'd seen my mistakes firsthand? I hate to say it, but people can be unforgiving. They like to remind you over and over again of your mistakes instead of letting you move forward. Did I want to live in an environment where even if I corrected my mistakes, everyone would remember and remind me of them? I felt like part of the process of forgiving myself was sparing myself people's ridicule. As a vulnerable 20-year-old, I could easily spiral right back into depression. I wanted to go someplace where no one knew me and where I would be only judged on my behavior moving forward. If I were giving advice to someone who had a public mishap, generally it wouldn't be to run away from your problems. It would be to stay and fight and rebuild the trust that you had lost. But there are times in life when a fresh start is necessary to free the soul from the weight of shame, regret, and the voices in your head. Almost like in the movies when the hero goes on a journey so that he can connect with his inner self and discover who he really is. For me, the military offered that pathway. At 43, I now understand the value of leaving home and starting a new life. It's an opportunity to succeed, especially if you have people or habits holding you back at home. While attending Hill College, I found myself back in Sacramento's Oak Park neighborhood where I had a lot of family, including cousins who were attempting to start their adult lives. Most of my friends who had a purpose in life had moved away or were busy in college chasing their new life goals. I knew there was nothing good for me in Sacramento because I couldn't seem to be a leader in my own life and stay out of compromising situations. Moving away would put some distance between me and the bad influence. It would force me to grow up and become a new man. So in September 2010, in September 10th, 2000, I enlisted at the Army recruiting station in Sacramento. I received an $11,000 bonus, which I used to pay back my student loan. I was set to earn the equivalent of what I believed to be at the time a $20 an hour job. I would gain veteran status. Most importantly, I would acquire a brotherhood of friends and mentors that I desperately needed as a young, misguided man. Of course, what I needed wasn't exactly what I was prepared for. The Army then was not the Army of today. And when I was shipped off to Fort Moore, formerly Fort Benning in Georgia, for basic training, I didn't know what I was in for. About 3 to 4 weeks into boot camp, we had radio training. This was designed to teach new privates the phonetic alphabet, how to announce our identifier and call sign, how to transmit a message, how to state when our transmission was complete, and how to transition speaking privileges to the individual on the other end of the radio. A typical correspondence would go something like Alpha 9, this is Charlie 9. I read you loud and clear, over. Once over was stated, it would cue Alpha 9 that they could identify themselves and begin to transmit their message. One fateful day, my head wasn't in the game for some reason. Within the last 6 months, I had lost both my grandmother and my best friend Paul, who tragically drowned. I was operating in survival mode, just trying to make it to the next day. That particular day, maybe because basic training was starting to have its desired effect, I'd had enough. I wanted to give up on everything, beaten down mentally, physically, and emotionally. I had nothing else to give this world. It's not popular for men to talk too much about their state of mind or emotions, as I'm about to do. At least it's not popular in my community. Things are changing and everyone has a different experience. But the way I grew up, men are supposed to suck it up, move on, and power through. If I'm being honest, I generally agree with this philosophy. If you dwell in your emotions as a soldier, you can get killed. If you dwell in them as a civilian, you could miss out on a job opportunity, the date, and the moment, because dithering can lead to low confidence. But there are some days when if you don't get it out, it'll work against you. When Paul died, I was in such shock that I didn't even cry at his funeral. I was dead inside. I simply stared ahead while I helped carry his casket to its final resting place. What I know now and didn't know then is that shock can make people behave this way only to reach a breaking point later on. On that day in training, Drill Sergeant Copeland had been riding my butt trying to get the best out of me. He said, he said, say the radio line, Private Horton. I said the radio line, but I made a mistake. Wrong, wrong, Private Horton. Say the radio line again. Again, I attempted to say the radio line. Wrong, wrong again, Private Horton. Raising his voice in anger, he shouted, say it again. I began to say the line, but before the third word came out, Drill Sergeant Copeland assumed an outright shouting stance in my face. As you can imagine, everyone stopped to see what was going on. Wrong again, Private Horton. Say it again. I froze. I started to get dizzy. My mind was locking up on me, and I couldn't speak. I couldn't think. I'd taken all I could take. I tried to say the line again, and Drill Sergeant Copeland yelled out in response, wrong effing answer, Private Horton. Wrong effing answer, Private Horton. Say it again. I broke down in an ocean of tears, and dizzy, I fell to one knee as the private behind me partially caught me. Drill Sergeant Copeland stopped the lesson. My squad leader took me off to the side to cool off and calm down. Back then, there were no stress cards to pull out when you were starting to lose your mind. You kept moving forward. Some of the instructors were Vietnam era and came from the 1990s Balkan conflict. They had seen real combat. Their job was to ensure that on the battlefield, we maintained our composure and accomplished the mission. If we broke during war, not only could we get ourselves killed, we could get other service members killed as well. As we moved on from the radio training to other lesson stations like rifle assembly, map navigation, chemical mass training, and squad fire maneuvering, I wondered if the other drill sergeants felt sorry for me. I made a few other mistakes that day, but the drill sergeant seemed to be a little more lenient on me. By the time I got to my bunk that night, I was exhausted. Not many people spoke to me. They knew I was going through it. I fell asleep exhausted. When I woke up the next morning, I felt like a bag of bricks was gone from my shoulders. My mind was clear. I felt like no matter what happened that day, there was nothing anyone could do to me that hadn't already been done. I didn't know it then, but Drill Sergeant Copeland freed me from the constant weight of pain, anguish, and grief that had been ravaging my mind ever since I started to unravel in my senior year of high school. I was finally able to set those bad memories down and move forward with my life. Whatever spirit I had left inside me finally broke free. From that day forward, I was essentially a new man. In my opinion and experience, and others with different experiences will certainly hold their own opinions. Military basic training is designed to break a man down to a child's level of acceptance. Then and only then can you rebuild him into a soldier and proud American citizen. I was never the best soldier, but I was able to put together a pretty good career in the military after basic training. That training gave me direction and guidance, two precious commodities that college solidified. What I learned in those institutions set me up to keep pursuing, keep striving. Ironically, the discipline and structured life in the Army created the opportunity for me to be free. I think people often get freedom in life backwards. They look at it as not going to school and not climbing the corporate ladder, but taking on gigs and living according to whatever whim grips them. That's not freedom, though. That just enslaves you to low-wage jobs and an unstable life where you don't know where your next check or your next job opportunity is coming from. Because I learned discipline, I put in the work and I advanced my career. I now have the freedom to travel and to retire when I want. Discipline in life gave me the freedom to make 10 times the choices about what I want, both career-wise and life-wise. If there's nothing else you take from this book, I hope you will embrace its one central lesson. Grab life's second chances. Did I find my purpose only because almost dying forced me to wake up and consider what life really meant to me? Yes. And I believe it's a good idea to face head on the fact that life is fragile and we are meant to find our purpose sooner rather than later. In the face of my mortality, I discovered the urgency to make every moment count. And I encourage you to do the same, preferably without the trauma of almost dying. Reflect on your own mortality. Recognize the value of your time on this earth. Embrace the reality and use the awareness to fuel to pursue your passion, dreams, and purpose with unwavering dedication. Of course, my path wasn't a direct one to success. Before I became a college professor, a vice president, an entrepreneur, I encountered plenty of failures. Failure is an inevitable part of life, but it doesn't have to define us. I will share my experiences of hitting rock bottom and the artist's journey I undertook towards personal growth. I encourage you to view your life own failures as stepping stones towards success, reminding yourself that setbacks are opportunities for self-reflection, learning, and resilience. This is essentially what's known as a growth mindset. Life transformations require a mindset shift from seeing challenges as insurmountable obstacles to opportunities for continual self-improvement. I developed a growth mindset by constantly seeking knowledge and pushing myself beyond my comfort zone to become the best person I could be. I hope you too adopt this mindset. I hope that after reading this book, you choose to strive towards gratitude, towards improving your work ethic, and towards seizing opportunity when it presents itself. Gratitude is the foundation of a fulfilling life. I should know. I emerge with an immense sense of gratitude for the chance to make a difference, not just in my life, but in the lives of those around me. Ultimately, my story serves as a testament to the transformative power of making the most out of life's second chances. You have the agency to shape your own destiny and create an extraordinary life filled with purpose, meaning, success, and adventure. But you have to be willing to put in the work. Luck favors the prepared, and success comes to those who are willing to put in the effort. That's why the people that work the hardest always seem to be the luckiest. Throughout my story of failure, recovery, and transformation, I aim to inspire you to find your own second chances. The central message is clear. We are all fortunate to be here. With hard work and determination, we can shape our lives into something extraordinary. End of chapter 1.